What happens when America's friendliest morning anchor finally loses patience with a royal guest who refuses to play along? On the Today Show, millions tuned in expecting a cheerful conversation with Prince Harry. Instead, they witnessed one of the most explosive confrontations in live television history. What began with light smiles and polite chatter quickly unraveled into a tense exchange. By the end, the unthinkable happened. Harry was asked to leave the set. The studio buzzed with its usual energy. Lights glowed across the iconic backdrop. Crew members rushed around in headsets, and mugs of coffee steamed on the table. At the center sat Al Roker, veteran anchor with his trademark warmth and charm, joined by his co-hosts. The morning felt routine in New York, except for one thing. The guest was Prince Harry. Dressed in a navy suit, Harry walked in with the practiced ease of someone long accustomed to global attention. The audience applauded politely as he shook Al's hand and sat down. For a moment, it looked like any other morning. Just a royal ready to discuss projects, family life, maybe even share a humorous story. "Good morning, Prince Harry," Al said brightly. "Great to have you with us. How are you feeling today?" Harry smiled, but his eyes told another story. "I feel fine. It's not every day I do one of these shows, though I imagine you'll try to make it into a circus." The audience chuckled uneasily, unsure whether to laugh or not. Al brushed it off smoothly. "Well, we'll try to keep the circus animals outside." He replied with a grin. "Let's start with something simple. You've been busy. New ventures, appearances, your charitable work. Tell us what's driving you right now." Harry leaned back. "What drives me is doing things on my terms, not the monarchy's terms, not the tabloids' terms, and certainly not the media's terms." His voice carried an edge that tightened the air in the room. Al kept calm. "Fair enough. Speaking of doing things your way, you and Meghan have taken bold steps in redefining what royal life means. How has that transition been?" Harry's expression shifted into a smirk. "I wouldn't call it redefining. I'd call it surviving. And people who ask about transition don't understand what it means to escape a gilded cage." The audience stirred uneasily. Al pressed on, his tone still warm. "Escaping a gilded cage? That's powerful. I think our viewers are curious, though. What does day-to-day life look like now? Parenting, work, family time?" Harry straightened, his words sharp. "Parenting is private. Unlike some people, I don't parade my kids for cameras. So forgive me if I don't hand you the soundbite you're fishing for." Murmurs spread through the audience. Al's co-host shifted in his seat, but Al only smiled. "Of course, no one's asking for a soundbite. Just giving you space to share what you'd like." Family life is family life. End of story. Harry snapped. "If people can't grasp that, maybe they should look at their own families instead of obsessing over mine." The audience gasped at his bluntness. Al gave a small chuckle to ease the tension. "Point taken. Let's pivot then. Your charitable foundation has been in the spotlight, and you've spoken powerfully about mental health awareness. That's an area where you've been a strong voice for change." For the first time, Harry leaned forward. His words were firm, laced with arrogance. "Yes, I've been a voice for change because, unlike most, I've actually lived it. And frankly, I'm tired of people questioning my sincerity, as if I'd make something like this up for attention." The remark landed heavily. No one in the room had accused him of exaggerating, yet his defensiveness hung thick in the air. Al's co-host smiled nervously, gripping his mug. Al nodded, still calm. "No one's questioning your sincerity here, Harry. We all know these issues matter deeply to you. But it does raise a question about balance. How do you maintain privacy while also speaking so publicly about personal struggles?" Harry smirked. "Balance? That's rich coming from the media. Privacy doesn't exist when people like you keep demanding access. You can't ask about balance when you're part of the imbalance." This time, the audience's murmurs grew louder. Al, still trying to keep things light, chuckled and lifted his coffee mug. "You're keeping me on my toes this morning. I may need more coffee to keep up." Harry didn't smile. Maybe drink less coffee and ask better questions. The crowd gasped. Al's co-host froze mid-smile, and the atmosphere shifted completely. With remarkable restraint, Al leaned in again. Well, that's what live television is. A conversation. And we've only just begun. As the cameras cut to commercial, whispers rippled through the studio. Something had begun to unravel. This wasn't just another royal interview. It was turning into a showdown. When the break ended, the lights flared once more. The audience, still buzzing from the earlier exchange, fell into uneasy silence. Al Roker's polished smile returned, though tension flickered behind it. Welcome back to the Today Show. We're here with Prince Harry, talking about his work, his journey, and his life beyond the palace. The applause was soft, tentative. Harry sat back in his chair, arms folded, his posture more combative than conversational. Like a man prepared to argue his case, Al pressed forward. Harry, I want to ask you about something that fascinates the public. You've spoken before about stepping away from the royal family to build your own life. What has been the greatest challenge in carving that independent path? Harry tilted his head, a smirk playing at his lips. The greatest challenge? Dealing with questions like that, people act as though leaving was some heroic act or catastrophic betrayal. It was neither. It was me deciding I was done being a mascot for an outdated institution. The audience murmured again. Al nodded thoughtfully. I hear you, but a lot of people still see you as tied to the monarchy, whether you like it or not. Do you feel any responsibility to that role? Harry laughed bitterly. Responsibility? I've spent my life being told what my responsibility is. To wave at crowds, cut ribbons, and smile while everyone else lived normal lives. I owe nothing to the crown. If anything, it owes me. The words hit hard, prompting uneasy glances among the crowd. Al leaned forward with practiced diplomacy. So would you say that chapter is closed completely? No chance of returning to royal duties? Harry's answer was instant. Not unless I hit my head and forget everything I've learned. Why would I go back to a family business that feeds me to the wolves, and then pretends it's protecting me? That chapter isn't just closed. It's burned, gasps rippled through the audience. Al's co-hosts shifted uncomfortably, exchanging incredulous looks. Al kept his composure, though his eyes had sharpened. Strong words. Let's talk about your family life, then. Your children, Archie and Lilibet. How are they adjusting to life in the U.S.? Harry's expression hardened. Why should I answer that? You people always want to drag children into this. My kids don't exist for your audience's entertainment. Al raised his hands lightly. Of course, no one's asking for details that compromise privacy. Many parents watching admire how you balance public work with raising young children. It's a chance to share something meaningful. Harry scoffed. Balance? Another media buzzword. Here's the truth. I don't need to explain how I raise my children to strangers drinking coffee in their pajamas. My family isn't your morning show filler, the crowd murmured uncomfortably. Al's smile flickered but held. He glanced briefly toward the camera, then back at Harry. Fair enough, but you have chosen to share certain parts of your family life in interviews and documentaries. Some might say... Harry cut him off, his voice sharp. Some might say, critics argue, sources claim. That's just lazy journalism dressed up as conversation. For the first time, Al's composure slipped. A trace of irritation crossed his face before he forced a small laugh. Well, I'll take the lazy journalism insult in stride, he said gently. But I think what our audience is looking for is authenticity. When you choose to share some things but refuse others. People naturally had questions. Harry leaned forward, eyes flashing. Authenticity doesn't mean I owe anyone every detail of my life. It means I speak when I choose. About what I choose. You don't set the terms, Al. Neither does the press. Not anymore. The tension was sharp enough to slice through the room. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate as they zoomed in, catching the frost in Harry's stare and the calm steel in Al's. Al shifted gears, keeping his voice steady. Let's talk about your projects. Your production company has drawn attention. Some praise, Some criticism. There were reports you and Meghan pushed for higher pay for your latest streaming series. Is that true? Harry gave a contemptuous laugh. The money question. It always comes up, doesn't it? No one ever asks how much the royal family costs the taxpayers. No, they just ask me how much Netflix pays. Maybe call up Buckingham Palace and ask for their receipts. The audience gasped, some laughing nervously. Al chuckled faintly, though his patience was clearly thinning. I think people ask because you've been very public about financial independence. So naturally deals like that draw interest. Harry's smirk hardened. Financial independence means I don't have to justify a single paycheck to you or anyone else. I walked away with nothing but my name. If people can't handle that, I've turned it into something valuable. That's their problem, not mine. The room tightened with the weight of his words. Al nodded, calm but firm now. Fair enough. But when you talk about transparency and accountability, surely financial arrangements are part of that conversation. Harry's tone cut like a blade. No, Al. Transparency is about truth, not feeding a nosy public obsessed with my income. If they want transparency, maybe they should demand it from the one still wearing crowns and tiaras, not from the one who walked away. The tension snapped like a live wire. The audience reacted with gasps, murmurs, even scattered claps. Al pressed his lips together, his patience fraying. The segment cut to commercial again, but the room knew the storm was building. Harry wasn't backing down, and Al was nearing his breaking point. When the music sting faded and the cameras rolled again, Al's smile returned, polished, polite, but stiff as if pinned in place. To his left, Hoda Kotb leaned toward Harry, hands loosely clasped, eyes soft, trying to calm the air. "Welcome back to today," Al said, voice smooth but tight. "We're here with Prince Harry, continuing our conversation about life, work, and the choices that come with public attention." Harry sat forward, elbows on his knees, tieless collar open by design. "I'm not here to perform," he said before Al could ask the next question. "Let's not pretend this isn't another chance for the media to dissect me." Hoda stepped in gently. "No one's asking you to perform. We're listening, and I think a lot of people are rooting for you. They've watched you grow up." Harry's smile was thin. "Watched. That's the verb that got me here." Al nodded, still warm. "Then let's talk about agency. You choose your projects now. Documentaries, philanthropic initiatives. If you could name one thing you're proudest of this year, what would it be?" "My refusal to be baited," Harry shot back crisply. A few audience members chuckled nervously. Al took it in stride. "Okay," he said lightly. "Let me try something specific, and you can steer me if you like. You and Meghan working creatively together. How do you keep each other honest? Speaking as a married guy, sometimes my wife's note saves the whole broadcast." Harry's eyes flicked to him. "Cool. We don't need cutesy metaphors to justify working together. We're adults. We communicate, and we don't owe anyone a peek behind the door." Hoda laughed softly. "Fair. I think he was just asking about collaboration, not the color of your sofa." "It's always the sofa next," Harry replied with a shrug. Al let the moment pass, then glanced at his cards. "There's still curiosity, fair or not, about your relationship with the institution you left. Some viewers wonder if there's space for healing." "Not the kind of headline healing you're hoping for," Harry said coolly. "Healing doesn't mean pretending the fire never happened, Al. It means walking away from the ashes. And yet," Al pressed gently, "you speak about that fire often. Is there a path where you don't have to? Where your work stands on its own?" Harry's jaw tightened. "That's the plan. And the press is the obstacle. You all keep asking where the smoke came from, then act shocked by the smell." A flicker passed across Al's face, his patience thinning. Hoda caught it and stepped in with a softer tone. "Let's give the audience something they can use. A lot of people struggle with boundaries. What's one you've drawn that's made life better?" Harry's gaze softened just slightly. I don't answer questions just because they're asked. Hoda nodded. That's a good one. Al managed a small smile. And yet here you are. So let me ask one you can absolutely decline. Your children. Not names, not stories. Just the value you hope they grow up holding from you. Harry considered it for a beat. That they never mistake politeness for respect. That's thoughtful, Al said genuinely. So when people ask about privacy while you're also... There it is. Harry cut in. Always the pivot to the contradiction you've already decided exists. Al's tone stayed calm. I'm asking how you square it, that's all. By refusing to square it for you. Harry shot back. Or for anyone who thinks they're owed the geometry of my life. The audience stirred. Hoda shifted again, hands open. Let's go wide. You've called the monarchy outdated. Some hear that as an attack, others applaud. What do you mean when you say it? Duty without humanity is theater, Harry replied. And I'm done acting. Al nodded slowly. Some might hear that as a swipe at your family. Some might hear whatever they're paid to hear, Harry answered coolly. A silence stretched before Al spoke again. I'm not paid to hear anything. I'm paid to ask. He glanced at his cards. Reports suggest you and Meghan pushed for expanded budgets on upcoming projects. Scope, not gossip. Does bigger mean bolder? I don't pitch small, Harry said. Small is for people afraid to be seen. Or for people who want the work to be the star. Al offered lightly, but the edge was there. Harry's smile didn't move. I don't need lessons on humility from a man counting ratings between weather hits. A ripple moved through the crowd. Hoda's brows lifted. Then she exhaled, smiling at the audience as if dimming the tension. All right, let's breathe. Live TV is a ride. Al clasped his hands, smile steady but eyes fixed. Here's a question you can refuse. Is there anything you wish you'd handled differently since stepping back? Not for headlines, for yourself. Harry stared at him. I wish I'd stopped believing good faith existed in rooms with cameras. The audience hushed. Hoda lowered her gaze, sympathy in her eyes. Al nodded once. I hear the hurt in that, he said, the sincerity real. Harry softened barely. Then let's not pretend this is a neutral exchange. I never said it was neutral, Al replied, voice taut. I said it was a conversation. Harry tilted his head. Conversations don't arrive with preloaded doubts. They arrive with curiosity, Al countered, and sometimes inconvenient follow-ups. Hoda touched his sleeve, steadying him. We're almost out of time. Maybe we can close with gratitude. One thing you're grateful for this week. Harry glanced at the lights, then back. That I can get up and walk when a room stops deserving my answers. A low reaction rippled through the audience. Al held his stare too long. Then, with professional control, he said, All right, we'll take one more break. When we return, we'll talk legacy, responsibility, and what accountability looks like when the spotlight is something you say you don't want. Harry laughed, short and dismissive. Accountability. That word again. Al's jaw tightened. Hoda's hand lingered on his sleeve longer than necessary. The music swelled. The red light died. And on set, no one moved. The crew fidgeted with cables they'd already checked. The air conditioning hummed, sharp and steady. Hoda leaned toward Al, whispering, Let me take the open. Cool it down. He didn't answer right away. Finally, quiet as a storm front, he murmured, He keeps calling questions an attack. Hoda's reply was even. And you keep meeting him halfway. One more segment, then we're out. Across from them, Harry rolled his shoulders like a fighter between rounds, eyes lit with the energy of defiance. The floor manager counted down. 3, 2, 1. The theme music faded, and cameras swung to the sofa. Al sat tall, his smile stretched thin. Hoda leaned forward, her voice warm. Welcome back. We've been having an energetic conversation this morning, and I want to thank our guest for his honesty so far. Harry gave a curt nod. Honesty is expensive, Hoda. Most people can't afford it. Nervous laughter rippled from the crowd. Al cleared his throat, choosing his words carefully. Let's talk legacy. Many people see you as someone who left tradition to build something new. What do you want that to look like 5 years from now? Harry smirked. Legacy is just a word the press invented to sell headlines. I want to live. That's enough. That's fair. Hoda said softly, but Al leaned forward, patience snapping. His voice was still calm, but weighted like thunder. Let me be straight. Every answer today has dripped with contempt. For the press, for questions, for anyone who dares to ask something you didn't pre-approve. But you chose this stage. You walked into this room. Do you know how it comes across? Harry blinked at the sudden steel in his tone. It comes across, he said slowly, as a man refusing to bow just because someone with a microphone demands it. Al shook his head. No, it comes across as arrogance. You talk privacy while cashing checks for documentaries about your private life. You criticize the monarchy, but build your brand on the royalty you claim to reject. And here, right now, you dismiss this audience, this crew, this network as if we're beneath you. That's not courage, Harry. That's hypocrisy. The audience gasped. Hoda reached for Al's arm in a silent plea to calm him, but it was too late. Harry flushed red. Hypocrisy? You sit here fattened on corporate dollars, pretending you're the moral compass of America. I don't pretend. Al snapped back, his voice sharp now. I show up day after day. I ask tough questions, and I don't bite the hand that gives me the platform. The silence was heavy. The crew froze. The audience leaned forward. Harry stood suddenly, his chair scraping loud against the floor. I don't have to sit here and be insulted on live television. This charade proves why I left the system in the first place. Al rose too, meeting him head-on, unflinching. And this proves why so many are done giving you sympathy. You want perks without accountability, fame without questions. And frankly, this show doesn't need it. Hoda stood quickly, trying to cut in. Gentlemen, please, let's take a breath. But the moment was already gone. Harry snatched his notes, jaw tight. I don't need this, and I don't need you. He stormed off, the door banging shut behind him. The cameras caught every step. The studio was stunned silent. Al turned to the audience, breathing heavy but steadying himself. Folks, I want to apologize. You came for a conversation, and it turned into something else. That was not the intention. Live television sometimes takes turns none of us expect, and I'm sorry you had to see that. Uneasy applause broke out, uncertain whether it was for the apology or the confrontation. Hoda placed a hand on his shoulder and faced the camera. We'll be right back. The red light died. The set exhaled. Across the country, though, millions were already posting, texting, and replaying the moment the prince stormed off the Today Show. A clash of defiance against exasperation, of a man who refused to bend and a host who finally broke. And by the end, only one of them was still in the chair.